Linda Stermer. Prosecutors say the mom of 5 drugged her husband, Todd, and then set him on fire, all before running him over with her van. I want to get you back into court now. Fire Chief Steve Leach, he's on the stand, he's on direct, talking about what he saw when he arrived at the scene.
When you arrived, tell me what you did.
When I first pulled in the driveway, when I got to turned up the drive, I noticed I'd already noticed you could see the flame from, pretty much the smoke and heavy smoke from my house. But as soon as I pulled into the drive, I noticed Mike Matheny standing at the edge of the house, waving towards me to come to where he was standing. And when I pulled up there, it was Mike and two people laying on the ground, which turned out to be Todd and Linda on top of him.
And when you say she was on top of him, what do you mean on top of him?
So like say he was laying on his back and she was literally on top.
Crosswise?
Crosswise, hysterical, but,
Was she by his head and chest area, or where was she on his body?
Head and chest area.
And based on just your observations as somebody who's worked in fire and your experience, was this something that was peculiar to you? Not her laying on him, the fire itself. I apologize.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Was the fire itself peculiar to you in any way as your experience as a fire chief?
It wouldn't have been.
Foundation. There's no foundation. He would
No, I'm not asking actually, just his layperson observations of the fire.
Wasn't what I was
He's the fire chief, not a fire investigation expert. Granted, he's seen fires, but to call something peculiar.
All right, so the defense objecting there to that particular question, his opinion as to what was, if anything weird about this particular fire. Now, he's a fire chief. One would think he has been to many, many fires, so they're probably discussing that now. We'll see what the judge ultimately decides in terms of letting him testify as to his opinion on that. But he's a very important witness, because one of the things that the defense is attacking in this case is the investigation into this fire. All right, looks like they've broken up that sidebar. Let's go back in.
So I could assess what I was looking at, and then she got back on, and please get off. I need to do my job. I need to assess what's going on here.
So you started, and then she jumped in.
Jumped back on top of him.
And she still was on top of him at that point?
Yeah.
And then what did you do to get him off?
Got her. Linda, please, I didn't know her by name, but ma'am, please get off. I need to be able to do my job.
So once you arrive there and you see these other folks and you get Linda off of Todd, what do you do?
I started looking him over and trying to assess what was going on. He was badly burnt, but he also was bleeding a little bit, which in my brain I was pulling up, and thinking, okay, fire, but it wasn't. It kind of threw me back for a second to notice the blood. He had some blood in his mouth and things. It was also burnt, but it was, there was blood on him as well. And that it just kind of threw me back for a second to try to figure out what was going on here.
And trying to figure out what type of aid to administer?
Yes, ma'am.
And so what did you do then after you were able to then view this blood and start to assess him?
It wouldn't have been long after that when somebody else came up along with us. When I opened his mouth and checked the airway, then I got back into my truck and grabbed my jump bag to where my oxygen and my masks and things like that would have been.
And then you were able to grab all that equipment out?
Yeah.
Where was Todd located at this time?
At that point, he was still right near the house, but it was getting very hot. And so then I don't remember in time lapse, I was trying to make sure that we were still safe in an area, the incoming trucks. But then I remember moving or helping move Todd further away from the house.
So you were part of that, of moving him?
Yeah.
And do you know what you did, like what you moved him on, or?
It seemed like it was like a kid's sled or something like that somebody had found in the yard.
It was interesting the way this witness described Linda, as if he was coming over and she kind of jumped in, kind of getting in the way almost. I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, we'll step aside here. We'll take a break. We'll have more of his testimony on the other side. Keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Tonight, on closing arguments, a once renowned surgeon now stands accused of murdering his wife. We're unpacking today's key moments as this trial gets underway.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV. Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Breaking news out of our newsroom, a Texas parole board has denied parole for Yolanda Saldivar. Now, she's the woman who was convicted of killing Tejano music icon Selena back in 1995. Saldivar has spent decades behind bars for fatally shooting the young singer at a Texas hotel or motel after being sentenced to life in prison. Now, the panel said that her case will be eligible to be reviewed again for parole in 2030. All right, let's get back now to the battered and burned murder retrial of Linda Stermer. She's accused of killing her husband, Todd, back in 2007. Now, a fire chief who responded to the scene is finishing up his direct testimony, describing what he saw at the scene. Let's head back into court.
You're not paying attention to that kind of stuff, but we got him on that, and it seemed like there were about 3 or 4 of us drug him further away from the structure to a safe area.
Was he alive before you put him on the sled?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of an agonal breathe, but he was breathing.
When you say agonal, what does that mean?
Not a good breath. It was more of a pained breath, it was just something that they taught you in EMT school, but it was the first time I'd ever witnessed. And then at that point you were like, oh, that is exactly what they meant when they talked about agonal breathing.
So this is the first time you'd ever seen that labored breath?
Yeah.
And did you check him to see if he had a pulse before you moved him?
Yes.
Did he have a pulse?
Yes.
And then you moved him, and then was there additional aid that was then rendered on him?
Yeah.
What type of aid then was being done on him?
I didn't do so much of it, but by then, because enough people had come in, but they were starting to do CPR. I had the AED. I had one in my truck. They tried to hook that up. And
what's that?
An automatic defibrillator.
And that's to check the heart?
To shock the heart. Trying to put the pads on, and it was so the body between the pads wouldn't stick.
Was that because of the injuries?
Injection foundation and it's form, often to speculate.
He's trying to adhere pads to his chest and saying they didn't stick, so I'm just asking why.
I guess I'll allow you. I'll allow you to ask him if he knows why.
Okay. Do you know why the pads didn't stick?
There was a lot of odor of things, but and the body was burnt badly, so I don't know what.
You said there was a lot of odor of things?
Fuel.
You could actually smell fuel?
It was kind of.
So you smell a smell of fuel?
An odor.
And where did you smell that?
On or about the body in that area.
Did you know where it was coming from at that time?
No.
But you smelled that when you were rendering aid?
Yeah.
Did Todd ever say anything to you?
No.
Did you continue to render the aid until the EMTs got there?
Yeah, that's when, like I said, once we moved him away, and that's when the incoming people were starting to, and so then I went to go be the fire, or, you know, not that one was more important, but start direct the fire aid, or to put the fire out.
So that's when you jumped into fire mode.
Yes.
When you went with your vehicle from, so did you just keep your vehicle then close to the body, or did you ever move your vehicle then?
Yes, it would have been too hot where it was at as well, so I had to move it.
And had to move it away?
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to travel on that grassy area?
When I got to the grass, I did have to put it in four-wheel drive, yes. It was kind of a greasy area.
What was the weather like at that time?
It seemed like it was rainy, sleety, kind of trying to spit some snow.
And then you moved into then fire mode after that?
Yeah.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Just want to make sure we're clear on the weather conditions at the time. Your best recollection as you sit here 18 years later is that it was snowy and sleety?
Kind of a
Right.
sleety.
Fair enough. Do you remember the temperature?
No, I don't. I just came from hockey practice for my son.
I just asked you if you remember the temperature, sir.
Okay. I was wearing a sweater and
Yes or no, do you remember the temperature that day?
The exact temperature? No, I would.
Okay.
I know what I was wearing.
Would it help if I refreshed your recollection with your report?
Sure.
May I approach on? And if I recall, give me 1 second. Does this look familiar to you, sir?
Fire report? Yeah.
Okay. That's something you fill out in the ordinary course of your business?
Yep.
When you report to a fire?
When you get back, yes.
That is your report, and
Yep.
you are trained to be accurate
Yeah.
in writing? Your Honor, I move for the admission of Exhibit II.
Your Honor, we object that you can't admit police reports as evidence.
It's all his first-hand information. There's no hearsay within hearsay. Okay. Sir, you're trained to write accurate reports, correct?
Yeah.
And in your report, am I correct? You say weather information, snow or sleet, like you just testified,
You get some choices, but yes.
and the wind speed is 10 miles an hour, correct?
Yep.
And the temperature is 32 degrees,
Yep.
freezing, right? You know what freezing temperature is?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
All right. That would have been...
All right, let's bring back in our guest, still with us, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marcia Minot. Marcia, important witness clearly for the state. He's the fire chief. He shows up at the scene. First and foremost, I want to talk about his testimony that he smelled some kind of accelerant near or at the body. Now, we heard from another guy, somebody who I wonder if even he's more of an expert because he works with cars, et cetera, all day long. He didn't smell it. We heard that testimony earlier, but this guy does. Not good for the defense, but I wonder if there's still something for them to work with.
They do have something they can work with. This is 18 years later, and we have written statements from this witness that appears to be inconsistent. So what you see is defense counsel getting ready to impeach this witness for the state, to say that's not what you said 18 years ago. And because you know that this is a second bite at the apple, you're trying to get it right this time for the state. I think this witness has to be careful, and the state needs to be careful that he does not lose credibility, because if he's impeached, then out goes what he's said and what the jurors have to believe. And now they're left with the other witness that said, I did not smell anything.
Yeah, I think he did say it the first time around, and it was a bone of contention in that first trial as well, because again, a lot of other people who were near the body said that they didn't smell it. But the importance of that ultimately is this fire and how it started is really the crux of the entire case, right? Because at the end of the day, if they're able to prove or at least create doubt that she's responsible for the fire, then the arson goes out the window, which means the felony murder goes out the window, and then the murder goes out the window, because if she didn't start the fire, then the thing that killed him, she's not really responsible for.
That is exactly how the process works. If she didn't start the fire, then she didn't commit the homicide. And the problem we have here is it's 18 years later, witnesses' memories fade. And what you have to do as a state is you have to prepare your witnesses by having them read and memorize almost what they said before, so that they don't get on the stand and say something inconsistent. It is critical for the defense as to how this fire started. And smelling accelerants does not in and of itself mean that this defendant caused the fire. The state is gonna need a little bit more in order to be able to get a second guilty verdict.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Marcia Minot, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Always a real pleasure to have you on the show. We'll see you again real soon.